Hello and welcome to today's episode of A Slice of Medieval. Today we are joined by one of my all-time favourite authors, Michael Jecks, who's written over 50 novels inspired by history and legend. He is the founder of Medieval Murderers and has served on the committee of the Historical Writers Association, the CWA and the Detection Club. He was International Guest of Honour at the Bloody Words Festival in Toronto and Grand Master of the First Parade in the New Orleans Mardi Gras. Today, Michael is joining us to talk about, I was going to say his latest book, but it's actually one of his latest books because for some reason he's got a load of books out at the minute that I'm trying to get through. But this is his new series.
Yes.
So this is his new series based on the First Crusade called The Pilgrim's War. And welcome, Michael.
In fact, I have a wonderful copy right here with my name on it. It's actually a revised edition because this was first published by Simon & Schuster, 10 or 11 years ago. But I moved away from Simon & Schuster to Boldwood, and they've basically taken that book and they're republishing it as the first in a new series. But the lovely thing is that I always had the concept that this was the first half of the Pilgrim's War. It was the first half of the First Crusade, and it takes us all the way through to Constantinople, and then the second half is from Constantinople through the three main battles to Jerusalem, and then the series is going to develop from there. It's all good fun.
It is. It's excellent. I read it and then I went out and bought a copy for my dad for Christmas. Because I introduced my dad to you during, I can't believe I'd never lent him one of your books. But during COVID, it was like I had to do a mercy dash because he's like, I've run out of books. And I'm like, okay, have you read Michael Jecks? He says, no. Right. Well, I've got 30 odd books. So you sorted my dad through COVID.
Oh, good. I'm glad I served some sort of purpose.
Otherwise, Mum would have killed him. So thank you for that. Right. So the Pilgrim's War is set in the First Crusade. Now, everyone else writes stories about Richard the Lionheart and the Third Crusade. What made you choose the First Crusade?
Well, I'm a sequential sort of person. You start at the beginning. I mean, the thing is, this is the first in a fairly significant series. I mean, basically what I'm looking at is the whole of the crusading period in the Holy Land. So I'm not so bothered about the crusading periods outside and later, but you'll know that I have my main series, which is the Templar series, which takes us from 1316 with the arrival of Baldwin in Devon and all the way through to the late 1320s. And then the last book I wrote in that series was a prequel, because I like confusing myself, which was all about his early years during the Siege of Acre.
Yes.
Acre at the end of the Kingdom of Jerusalem, because after the Christians were kicked out of Acre, then the kingdom basically did not exist anymore. And I always had the thought that it would be really much more entertaining for me to look at the whole of the crusading period, and in particular the Knights Templar. You can't explain the Knights Templar until you explain the crusading period, what led to it and everything else. So it really started with the First Crusade, because I thought, well, that way it's a lead into the whole of the Kingdom of Jerusalem's time period of 200 odd years and the Templars. And I wanted to look at that, but not again from the point of view of Richard. It's like when I started writing my Bloody Mary series, I immediately was drawn to the idea of the Tudors, and I thought, well, yes, I could write about Henry VIII. And then I looked at the shelves and I thought, quite a few people have done that. And I thought, well, let's go for Elizabeth. No one's done. Yes, they have done that too. So I eventually fell into Bloody Mary and her reign. because nobody seemed to have written about her. So I had my little assassin trolling around the streets in Bloody Mary's reign. And I don't like going for the big names. So I've not included the Queen or important people too much in any of my books. I prefer to look at life from the point of view of the average peasant, because that's what I am. I mean, don't you love it when you have people who decide that they are reincarnated from someone in the past, and they're always the reincarnation of Napoleon or Josephine
Yeah.
or Queen Elizabeth, or they're
Yeah.
always someone fascinatingly interesting, apparently. I mean, I know damn well that I was the poor little devil who went down the sewers and dug out all the crap, because that is more than likely what I would have been doing.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of taking books like this and showing what it was like for the ordinary characters. So I don't, with Pilgrim's War, yes, I've mentioned some of the bigger names because you can't not mention them. But I prefer to look at it from the point of view of the ordinary guys who were there on the march and explain what life would have been like for them. So I started with the First Crusade.
Yeah, I mean the First Crusade's quite handy for that, isn't it? Because it's kind of starts
Yes,
off as a pilgrimage, really, doesn't it? Or at least it's in the format of a pilgrimage.
that's how it was sold.
Yeah.
This was a massive sales campaign. The popes, a couple of them, felt that this was a really good way of imposing their. You've got to bear in mind that at the time, popes weren't considered to be necessarily the spiritual leaders of Christianity. So you had the Holy Roman Emperor, who believed that he should be the spiritual leader, Henry IV, I think it was. And he decided that he was the boy. He was directly in line to the Roman Empire itself, so he was an imperial sort of a chap, and he felt that he had the right to impose bishops all across Europe wherever he wanted to. And we had the same thing in England, where you had Thomas à Becket and so on, who finally said, "No, King, you can't put your own people in place. It's the Pope who's the boss." In the end, with Henry, he had to submit to the Pope's will and had to dress in sackcloth and walk barefoot and wait for, I think it was 2 days before he was given an audience, and the Pope had stated his position and he was in charge. In the same way, he didn't like Alexius of Byzantium, the Byzantine emperor, because he deposed his predecessor. And the Pope didn't approve of that because he quite liked the predecessor. So he excommunicated the emperor of Byzantium, which more or less drove Byzantium much more to the Eastern Orthodox Church. There was a lot of politics going on between the Holy Roman Church and the Eastern Orthodox, as there still is today, of course. And the Pope decided that it would be quite a nice thing to take over more control. And he was given an in because Alexius had a certain amount of embarrassment at the time. And he was a good commander, apparently. He demonstrated great skill. I've got to apologise. Every time I look round, it's because a builder's just walked past my window. We're having a lot of work done in our house. But Alexius had a little bit of local embarrassment because the Normans were invading on one side, bloody Normans, obviously. But he also had Islam invading on the eastern side. So he was trying to fight two sets of battles. He managed to buy off the Normans to an extent, but the eastern side, he had lost Antioch, he'd lost Nicaea, and he wanted to have something done to try to recover his territory. So he sent a little note to the Pope and said, "Look, we're Christians, wouldn't you like to help us? Could we have a few knights?" And the implication is that he wanted maybe a couple of hundred mercenaries. Yeah, it would just help him stabilize his eastern border. What he didn't expect was 100,000 pilgrims wandering over there, some of them with weapons, not by any means all of them. And it was actually rather a difficult sort of thing for him to cope with. But the Pope was over the moon with the idea and the concept. And obviously, he had preachers like Peter the Hermit wandering all over Europe, selling this idea of, why don't you come? Because if you go to Jerusalem and you help recapture Jerusalem, then you'll be absolved of any sins. You'll have a completely clean slate. You'll go straight to heaven and have a drink with St. Peter the same night you die. It'll be fine. It'll be fine, boys. And an awful lot of people were persuaded, including children. Yes, you had absolutely all kinds of person in society, from peasant farmers through the prostitutes to all sorts. It was crazy.
Yeah, and that's my next question, because you have got, in Pilgrim's War, there is a diverse range of characters. There are knights, but there are also bakers, blacksmiths, prostitutes, and children. Are there real stories inspiring this fiction? Did you discover these people?
Yeah, there's a huge amount of information out there. It's quite difficult to work your way through some of it. I tend to go from secondary sources because it's a damn sight easier and faster.
They've done the hard
someone
work.
else has done the work. But there's lots of, if you look at Stephen Runciman's books, Thomas Asbridge's books, Sharon Newman's books, there's a hell of a lot in them. And they give all these different little examples. And there's an awful lot of material that's coming down, I think, through ecclesiastical records and others. And then there were quite a lot of records that were written up when they actually got to Jerusalem about people who had achieved it. So, yeah, it's a case, as always, with this kind of thing, of getting as much information as you can, and then to an extent reinventing the wheel from that. So you do as much research as you possibly can, and then you have to write the story.
Well, there were a couple of stories where you thought, nah, no one would believe that one. I better leave that one out.
Yes, but don't ask me to relate them now because my memory is absolutely dreadful, and I'm currently writing a different book. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always the way.
Isn't it terrible? I mean, I have to admit that every time I finish a book, it is completely wiped from my memory as soon as I start writing the next one. Every time.
Yeah.
I think that's normal. I mean, every writer I speak to says that. I think you have to, in a way, because you have to leave space for what you're going to create, and you can't be all the time have all this other stuff
Absolutely
in your head.
It's like the Sherlock Holmes story, isn't it? Where he feels his mind is like a lumber room. There's no point putting any rubbish in there, like what are the stars, because they're no use, no relevance to him whatsoever. But just concentrate on the stuff that matters. I think it's actually just because I've got a lousy memory, but
well, then a year later the book comes out and you're supposed to promote it, and it's like, I'm editing another one and writing another one. I don't.
Well, I must have told you my classic first interview on the BBC when I was interviewed by the delightful Janet Kipling down at Radio Devon, and drove down to Plymouth to have the interview, and we had a 10-minute chat where I was talking about my life as a computer salesman, and this is why I wrote my first book and so on. And in the second half of the interview, she asked me about this bloke. I said, sorry, I haven't had a chance to watch the news today. I set off early, so I didn't see a newspaper or anything. This is going back a few years. And she sort of giggled a bit and then asked me the same question about the same bloke. And it was only later I realised it was one of the main characters in my bloody book. But I'd written that book in 94. It came out in 95. The paperback came out November 95, and this was March 96. And I'd written 2 more books and the synopses for another 3 by then. But all I will say is to any aspiring authors, before you go to an interview, at the very least, read the back cover of your bloody book. It might just...
We should all do cliff notes of our books when we've written them, so that we can, possible questions you're going to be asked when you have to promote it in a year's time. But none of us do.
But little things like, what was the name of the key characters?
Well, names go out of my head fairly quickly.
Same here.
Well, when I was talking to, who was I talking? I can't even remember who I was talking to. I was at Shaftesbury Abbey, and I was doing a radio thing about a book that I'd written quite a while before. And just as we started, it went through my head, hang on a minute, what can I actually remember about that book? I hadn't given it any thought because I was actually doing a talk and I had some notes for the talk. But when the guy started asking me questions, it was almost kind of off the cuff, random questions, it seemed to me, because I didn't know what he was going to ask. So, it's a bit scary, really.
It's what makes life exciting, though.
Well, it's also the interviewers just read the book. You wrote it. years ago, but they read it so they could talk to you about it, and you're like, oh, I don't know, I can't remember.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I must admit, the great thing I've got now is since I've moved to Boldwood, every book that I do with them, the copy editor sends me a list of all of the main characters and what happens to them, and then key points in the story that she wants me to look at, so I can use them as crib notes every time I
Brilliant,
talk. It's wonderful. I've never had this before.
Right, so earlier on you mentioned Peter the Hermit in passing.
Yeah.
Can you tell us something about this guy? He seems rather an interesting character.
All right, let's get this into perspective. Islam captured Jerusalem. I'm just trying to remember now. I think it was about 657. It was quite a while before. I mean, and we're talking about the First Crusade in the late 1000s. So it wasn't as if, 637, the Muslims captured Jerusalem. So the idea of going on pilgrimage in 1097 or wherever it was, they actually reached it in 1099. The idea of that, it wasn't a sudden, massive thing. Oh God, they've just captured Jerusalem. We must go. It had been 400 years, for God's sake. So you think, well, hang about, what was going on? So it was mostly the politics. And the Pope thought it would be a really neat idea. So he sent out various preachers to go all across Europe and persuade people. And Peter the Hermit was one of them. He must have been horrible because he only drank wine and he only ate fish. And by all accounts, he was rank. But this unpleasant, emaciated little chap, some reports say, had tried to go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem and had been turned back, probably because he was preaching Christianity and the Muslims didn't really like that, which is fair enough. I mean, the Christians felt the same about Muslims coming over here. So he got a bit of a bee in his bonnet and started wandering all over the place, preaching the idea of, if you want to be absolved of all sins, then come on crusade, come and join this wonderful pilgrimage. They didn't call it a crusade. I think that as a term developed a little bit later, taking the cross. But they were talking about it just as a pilgrimage. And you have a duty as a loyal Christian to either come and join this pilgrimage. All Christians should go on pilgrimage a few times in their life. This is the biggest pilgrimage you can possibly join. And if you're not going to join the pilgrimage, you have the same sort of benefit if you pay for it.
Yeah.
There you go. All good stuff. So he preached this, and to his credit, he did join it as well. And it wasn't until they got to outside Antioch, I think it was, where another Muslim army was coming down. The Christians were besieging Antioch pretty unsuccessfully because the Antiochenes could get food coming in from the back of the city over some mountain passes that the Christians couldn't get to. And so it was quite some time before the Christians could actually stop supplies getting into the city. But in the meantime, the Muslims were gathering an army coming down to attack the Christians. And if they'd met the Christians by that stage were starving. They had no means of support. So Peter the Hermit actually deserted the pilgrimage there. He ran away with a small force of people and was trying to get back to Byzantium, allegedly so that he could enlist more support and more food, but probably just because he was fed up. But he was captured, taken back, and he was forgiven and allowed to continue, which was nice of them. But he was pretty much a determined anti-Semite from the sound of things. A lot of the pilgrims were. I mean, they had their own Holocaust in Germany, in various cities where they went through and slaughtered all the Jews in different towns. Yeah, it was not a pleasant time for so many people, but it was very successful in terms of persuading people to join this massive pilgrimage. And they all set off and wandered through various Christian territories in Europe, plundering what they needed to, hoping that people would supply them with food. But yeah, 100,000 people suddenly landing on your doorstep. What are you going to do if even if you're a big city? Supplying food to that sort of number of people was not going to be easy. And there was, I mean, I always had this impression that, everybody supported the Crusades, and so they would have been delighted to have these people, and they would have donated free food. And no, they didn't. Oh no, they sold their food. And Christian pilgrims got quite hacked off with this. And there was a case where the King of Hungary, whose name escapes me, Koloman, was fairly genial, and he allowed them free passage to go through Hungary. And he did try to gather resources for them. He did try to gather food for them. And that was all fine. They went all the way through. And they were allowed to go through into Byzantine territory, which I think was at Belgrade. But a few of them were hungry. And so 16, I think it was, knights went over the border from Belgrade back to Semlin. Semlin? Yeah, Semlin. And the governor there discovered these 16 people basically ransacking a bazaar and stealing what they wanted. So he got a little bit arsy about that and arrested them all, took all of their armor and clothing, sent them on their way naked to go and rejoin the pilgrims, and he hanged all of the 17 armors and arms of war and so on from the walls of his city to say, you guys don't piss about with me, which, yeah, all well and good. And the next bunch of pilgrims who came up saw all this stuff hanging on the wall. They got the raging hump and took the city and killed about 4,000. These were Christians. You're supposed to be Christian pilgrims.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I mean, I did read one theory that the whole idea of the Crusades was to stop Christians fighting each other.
That was one, yeah.
And go and fight, the Muslims, because they kept making war on each other. And the idea is if you launch a crusade, then they're going to stop making war on each other.
Steve Tibble, he's done a lot of research into the Crusades and especially into the Templars, but mostly into the types of people that went out on crusade. And his basic thesis is that there was global warming, which led to a lot of starvation across the East. That drove people, such as the Muslims, to invade more territory where they could find food. But there was also an expansion of populations at the same time as famines. And what do you do when you got a whole bunch of youngsters? Well, yeah, sorry, Sonny, your brother's going to get the castle.
Yeah.
You've got to find something else to do. And it was a sort of accumulation of all of these youngsters who were basically thuggish, determined, martial people who decided to go across to other lands where they couldn't understand the language. They certainly didn't understand the politics and the religions there. And, basically they thought, well, these are all just heretics anyway, so we can kill them. It's a very interesting analysis of what would actually have led to things, but he does make a very cogent case, for which I have by no means managed to explain properly. But Steve Tibble basically does explain why it was that there was so much violence throughout the Holy Land, and it was because you had this raft of young, violent men. Let's not forget, you could be absolved of all sins if you went to help protect the Holy Land. So you got murderers going over.
Yeah.
You got fraudsters. You got blackmailers. You got every type of criminal known to man going out there. And, does a leopard change its spots just because you send it to new territory? I don't think so. And the violence in the Holy Land was much worse than the violence in the rest of the Christian lands, supposedly. I mean, there were still very dangerous areas. I mean, England under the Normans was not a nice place, but, probably considerably safer than going to try to recapture Jerusalem with a sickle and a little pocket full of bread.
Yeah, and a load of teenage delinquents.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's a demonstration of the sort of power of the persuasion of faith that so many people went on that in that first stage of it anyway, the sort of pilgrimage stage. But I guess the idea of pilgrimage was already very well established. So it's not as if they invented the idea of pilgrimage. The difference was the scale of it and the sort of focus of it, wasn't it?
The main difference was this was an armed pilgrimage.
Yeah.
I equate it in the same way as the Knights Templar were monks. I mean, they took the vows of chastity, poverty, obedience. The only thing was that they did it with a view to killing people, which is sort of slightly different from the average monk, you would hope.
Yeah.
And the Crusaders were very much like that. They were determined to go on pilgrimage, but if you went on a pilgrimage to your local holy well, that's fine.
Yeah.
You're not expected to murder everyone you meet on the way.
No. I think what surprised me in Pilgrim's War is the fact that they didn't actually know how to get there.
No.
These were people who'd lived their whole lives in one village or town, maybe gone to the next town for market, but other than their very small world, the idea of travelling so far, they didn't even know how far they were going to travel, how long it was going to take, and what direction to take.
Yep. They didn't know what sort of money was going to be there on the way. They didn't know. They knew nothing. There were lots of travellers who did go on pilgrimage to Jerusalem before the Crusades.
Yeah.
And yes, they were charged taxes to enter the city. So what? I mean, you were charged taxes to enter London or Paris at the same time. This was not unique to the Muslims. They probably got the idea from the Christians in the first place. But they were perfectly happy to allow people to worship whatever religion they had. The Muslim states were really quite open and amenable to Christians. They didn't expect Christians to convert Muslims to Christianity. That was a no-no. But apart from that, they were, stable, well-regulated states. But don't forget, I am looking at it from the point of view of the average person who was on the crusade. So you've got a lot of uneducated bakers, blacksmiths, prostitutes, and no, they would have not had the faintest idea how to do things. There were others who were well travelled, though. So some of the knights would have travelled quite extensively. We know that trade and trade routes from Byzantium across Europe were pretty well established. But it's one thing having a small caravan of people going across Hungary, say, and then having 100,000 people turn up on the doorstep of King Solomon and saying, well, give us some food, because it wasn't the right time of year. There wasn't that much food stored, and it was a hell of a challenge. And they did cause absolute mayhem, even when they were going into Byzantium and Byzantine Empire, and there was quite a few fracas along the way there. But the emperor was very sensible, and when they reached Constantinople, he basically didn't let them into the city, dumped them out, and after a few fights broke out, he shipped them across the Bosphorus to wait at, I think it's called Civitot, which was a small area on the beaches there, where from there they could see Constantinople, which was nice for them, but they couldn't cause so much mayhem.
No.
Then they decided that they were going to go to places like Nicaea, and they killed a bunch of people there. Quite a few of them were Christians, but God would know his own, no doubt, so that would be all right. And they went on to a castle at Zerigordon, but a Muslim army found them there and laid siege to the castle and basically slaughtered almost all of them. A few of them escaped, and they made it back to Civitot. They were followed there by the army, and there most of the pilgrims were slaughtered. So that first element of the First Crusade pretty much ended there. But then there were more crusaders appearing at Constantinople, and these were much more effective, led by Bohemond and Gregory and Tancred and the other big names that came up from the Crusades. And they were the ones who, first of all, took Nicaea, then they took Antioch, then they took Jerusalem, and then they ruled those city-states as their own. So Bohemond, I think, took Antioch, and Godfrey ruled in Jerusalem for a limited period. And that was when the crusading concept changed into being a straightforward imperial colonial type of concept. And that then led to even more violence, because there was only ever a small group of well-armed, mature fighting men there, and they had a need to pull in more fighters to protect their eastern borders, because the Islamic nations at the time, they were big. They had hundreds of thousands of troops, and so there was a big movement then to call in more pilgrims, more fighters, and it was still dangerous trying to cross across Europe. And that's why the Templars were created in the first place, was to protect pilgrims.
Yes.
That was the whole basis of their existence, protect pilgrims from Muslim attacks, but also to an extent from Christian attacks, because a hell of a lot of Christians were really hacked off with these violent, brutal thugs turning up on their country and pillaging all of their stores of food.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah. And going, it's okay, God will pay you, you know.
Yeah, you'll get your reward in a few days when you died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm getting the impression from this is then that with the First Crusade, especially with this People's Crusade part of it, there was a lack of organization. Everybody says we're going to Jerusalem, but nobody actually said, actually, if we pick a date that we're all going to meet there. So that didn't happen.
You know, it was crazy. I mean, yes, the main leaders would have had, I mean, Bohemond was a damn good fighter, so was Godfrey. And they knew how to fight a battle. They knew how to maintain a defensive position, because the first few battles against the Saracens, as they called them, were hellish for the Crusaders, because the Saracens had small light horses, they had light armor, and they had really good bowmen who could send their arrows from horseback, riding to a battle or riding away from a battle. And the Christian knights thought, well, that's okay, we got strong armor, we got good mail, but the Saracens would go behind them and shoot arrows at the horses. And the horses weren't protected from behind. The Christians got heavily massacred in a number of battles. And they did learn during the pilgrimage how to fight and defend themselves. I mean, I go into a couple of the battles in the next book, Crusaders' War, which is Nicaea, Antioch, and Jerusalem. And in that, I go through some of the battle tactics of the Crusaders, and Bohemond was a very good war leader, and very much like Richard the Lionheart, when he did go out to try to take Jerusalem, and he marched down the coast with all of the baggage near the water where it was protected, and the stronger knights and infantry walking in line astern to protect it all. That worked. Bohemond had that first idea on how to defend against the Muslims outside Antioch, and it worked very well. As with all these battles, of picking a good spot to have the battle in the first place, and then knowing what areas you need to defend and where to position your men. And the main thing at so many of the battles was that the pilgrims themselves, all of the knights, were told, do not get on your horse, you stand with the troops here and you hold your lance and we defend this spot. Because if they got on their horseback, then they would have been encircled and destroyed. It's so much of a precursor to the main battles of the early 1300s, when you think about the Flemings at the Battle of the Golden Spurs, and you think about Bannockburn, and so many other battles where it was really the troops on the ground that won the battle, because the knights couldn't break through the line of pikes or the line of lances, whatever it was. And then in the 100 Years' War, I mean, the main reason why the British were very successful was because they didn't send the knights on horseback in, because if they had, again, they'd have been slaughtered, because there were very few. I saw a report once that said there was never more than 2,000 knights in England.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Through history.
Sounds reasonable. And we tend to sort of focus on people with status, but the majority of people had no such status. They had no wealth.
And they're the ones who are interesting to me. I mean, you had prostitutes in the group. Well, you got a whole bunch of religious fanatics. How would they have perceived those prostitutes? How would they have behaved with them? There's a number of cases where the preachers and the religious leaders on the crusade decided that there had been far too much naughtiness going on with various women and men on the crusades, and so they had to fast for another 3 days or whatever it might be. And that was a continuing theme all the way through. So there must have been some rampant naughtiness going on, which I like to put into my books, obviously.
Well, I mean, these prostitutes, they've only got one job they've done, so they know how to make money, and there's a load of blokes around. They need money. I mean, what else were they going to do?
I mean, and you've got to look at it from the point of view of some of the women who were prostitutes didn't want to be necessarily. I mean, it's like Jeanne, who I have in the book, who was forced into it by her husband. Very common indeed.
Yeah.
All the way through in England until the 1800s and possibly well into the 1900s. It was certainly very common in those days. And, you know, I have Odo as the fanatical cult leader who comes to believe that he is God's own chosen one.
Yeah, you wrote Odo really well. I don't like him.
Thank you.
He's one of those who you're just like, oh, got him again.
Yeah, he started out okay, didn't he?
Yeah, he was lovely.
He got more and more
and
fanatical.
by the end of it, it's like, oh my god, he and him again. But yeah.
But there must have been quite a few like that, I think. And it's the same with any book. You can only go by your own experiences, your own perception of the world based on your own experiences. I mean, I am not religious in any way at all. So trying to get inside the mindset of someone who was born in such a deeply religious time isn't easy. But then you read some of the books about the very religious people, and then you put it in the context and you look at very deeply religious states of today, and I think you can extrapolate fairly easily.
Yeah.
I actually thought you did. I thought it was very clever the way you did it with Odo and his brother. They're setting off together on this crusade. One goes increasingly more fanatical, while the other one is just practical and just getting on with it. And he's trying his best to stay friendly with his brother, but you can tell he's getting worried about how far Odo's going to go. And I just thought it was brilliant the way it just provided the contrast of the two as the different types of people who are going on crusade and how it affects them.
Good, thank you. Because that was the objective.
It works, it really does.
That's good to know.
Well, I am the fourth of four brothers, and I have to admit we are all siblings of a fanatically non-religious person. I think it's safe to say. Our father was a lovely bloke, but he was a scientist and actuary, and it was one of the things that always was guaranteed to make him chuckle to himself when he, even up to the day of his death at the age of 96, never having been ill, never having suffered at all. And I always like to say to him, you know, those whom the gods love die young. Oh, yes. It's looking at different characters, and I think I've been fairly graced with first all of my brothers and looking at our interactions and how different points of view. We've never got to the stage of any sort of violence or nasty difficulties, discussions or anything. You know, we have points of view, we discuss them, that's fine. Then we have another beer. But it's always interested me when I look at other families where, especially when there's families just of brothers, where you get some rampant competition between brothers. Yeah. Even when there's sister siblings as well. I've always found that really interesting because I'm very non-confrontational. much like all authors, I think I'm much more observational. I'm interested. I mean, I'm the most boring pillock to invite to a party because
Yeah, I've
I
heard
won't
that.
talk
I've
to
heard
many
that.
people. Yeah, yeah, it's fair enough. I sit, if I've drunk enough, I'll sit giggling in a corner, and if I haven't drunk enough, I'll stand there and just listen in on other people's conversations because I'm a nosy devil, and that's how you fill your books with conversations, is to hear other people talking.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we all spend our time sitting in little garrets like this, don't we?
Yeah.
Hoping that inspiration will strike.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of those things that's when you talk to people who have real jobs, especially during COVID. I mean, I've always been fairly gregarious, I think it's fair to say, which is why I was a computer salesman for years. I loved that job, and it was lovely going out and meeting new people and having chats with them and so on. And then every day going into work, well, there's a good, strong team of people there. I was friendly with all of them. In fact, even though I gave up computer work and selling 32 years ago, I'm still good friends with my mate Graham, who I worked with for 4 years. Sharon, I still see her. A whole bunch of different friends that I made at that time in my 20s. So for me, it was a really odd experience. It probably was for you guys too, to change going from 5 meetings a day and a really close-knit team of friends that you see every day to seeing no one at all, sitting in an office, imagining a whole bunch of people. What a weirdo. But over COVID, a good friend of mine, Neil, was saying to me that he found it really hard because all of a sudden he wasn't allowed to go to the office and he didn't see people, and it was driving him nuts. I said, well, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
I worked in a large comprehensive school, and I was doing timetabling and stuff like that. So my day was constantly talking to
Yes.
individuals all over the place and meetings and so on. And so I went from that to, as you say, being in a small room, sort of contemplating my navel, trying to think of interesting ideas. But yeah, it is quite a
It
contrast.
is, isn't it?
And I think you have to be able to cope with that as a
Yeah.
writer, don't you? Because if you can't cope with it, you are not going to
Yes.
ever write
No.
anything.
And the nice thing is that if you find it hard to cope, I find it so straightforward. I just write someone on the page and kill them.
Yep.
Oh, God. The number of times I've threatened to put my husband on the first page and kill him off.
I've never threatened that to my wife.
It was the standing joke in this house. It's like, do that one more time, and I'm writing you into the first page, and you're the first one to be killed off. All right, darling. Yeah. My most therapeutic job was at Euro Disneyland Paris. I worked in a gift shop there, straight out of university, a 6-month job there. It's like, yeah, go to Paris for 6 months. Brilliant. You also get to stuff your bus in a carrier bag on a daily basis. Mickey Mouse. Like, so if you're having a bad day, trust me, Mickey Mouse gets stuffed in that carrier bag. You're having a good day, it's like, oh, Mickey. But yeah, everybody should go and work for Mickey Mouse so they can stuff him in a carrier bag.
Well, yeah, I just want to have more time to be able to read this lot.
Oh, tell me about it. Yeah. Reading.
I was chatting to Ian Rankin a little while ago, and we agreed that he was saying, the worst thing about being a writer is you go into writing because you really love reading, and as soon as you become a writer, you don't have time to read anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's maddening. I've got a hell of a lot of books here I want to read, and I can't.
Yeah, I've still got.
Yeah. And I find, I'm sure it's the same with you, that you end up, because you've got research you have to read about, that's what you do, and you dip into that, and you flip from one to another, and then other things that you might enjoy reading for their own sake, you just don't get around to.
But isn't it good when you find someone who's a good writer? I mean, Stephen Runciman, his 3 books on the Crusades, which I have to say was a birthday present from my daughter. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. But really well written. It's almost like reading a good thriller, Like Ian Mortimer's books.
Yeah.
Yes.
His books read like thrillers. They're just superbly well written.
They are very well written. Yes, we like Ian Mortimer. He comes on every now and then and gives us
We do, yeah.
teaches us an
I'm
awful
actually
lot.
seeing him next week for a beer or three.
Oh, well, say hi.
I will.
Yep, tell him we said hello.
The next book I've got to write is going to be another Templar book.
Yes.
It's going to be after the Siege of Acre. It's going to be taking Baldwin to look at what he does then, but it'll be a crime. It'll be straight crime. It's not going to be warfare, which will be a relief to me. Having written 50-odd crime books and 4 or 5 war books, it's nice to have the variety. In the same way as I really enjoyed writing the Tudor books because they were just for fun. They were humorous.
Oh, they were hilarious.
They were great. I really liked them.
Have the Tudors done that? Because I got the sense that Blackjack at the end of that one, that it was very rounded off.
I like to leave all my series open. I don't like. I am not Karen Maitland, bless her.
Yeah.
I mean, Karen always used to say that. I mean, she's changed slightly now because she's had a series, but she never had a series because she said, "Well, I always kill everyone," and she does. Doesn't matter whether you look at Company of Liars or what. She always kills off everybody.
Yeah, I thought with that last Blackjack, I read the end. I thought, is that the last one? Because it could be, but it's also open that it might not be. So I'm there thinking.
I actually finished that up knowing that I was moving to Boldwood. Because the Blackjack and the Art of Murder series were both with Seven House.
Yeah.
Who are very good publisher, and I've got no problems with them, and I will try to get back to Blackjack and Art of Murder because, again, they're fun.
I just love it. An assassin who doesn't like the sight of blood, he's brilliant. He actually succeeds in spite of himself.
I just love that concept.
And and his attitude to Devonians when he ended up in Devon, and he's like thinks he's this great Londoner, and everybody's taking the piss out of him, but he doesn't know it. He's brilliant.
That was always the delight of that series, was writing from his perspective, with him thinking he was God's gift to women and everything else. And you could tell by the reaction of everybody around him, they thought he was a plonker. I just loved that. Yeah,
he is a brilliant character. He comes across so easy, but it must have been really difficult to remember that he's an idiot.
Oh no, I mean, it's pretty much autobiographical, really.
Yeah.
It's straightforward. I knew exactly how he was going to react to anything, because it'd be, what do you mean you want me to kill him? Or tripping over a body, literally. What the hell's that doing there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to get back to another couple for them. They're good fun.
Yeah,
And the Art of Murder I like because, being modern day, I can use a mobile phone again.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, it's strange. It's good having the balance of modern day and medieval, because there's a certain joy in medieval books that you don't have mobile phones and cars. There's also a great joy in getting back to books where you can have a mobile phone and a car.
Yeah. And you don't have to think, now, was that available then, or wasn't it? Could I do that?
That's a real problem I have got now, because I'm such a nerd about the 1300s with the original Templar series. Now, going back to the 1090s and next books a little bit later on and so on, I'm constantly referring to my Bible, which is essential. Just trying to confirm I've got the right sort of swords and the right kind of armor and all that detail. Because I know you're pretty much the same, but I cannot put in a book something I know to be wrong.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I can be flexible on dates, not so worried about that, because I think that most of my characters wouldn't have been aware of the dates anyway.
That's a good thing, because I'm the other way around. I have to get the exact date. If I've got somebody who's dead on the 12th or the 13th, it's like, well, which is it? If I've got timelines of history and I've got timetables of history.
But then again, I mean, marriage, oh God, that's another bloody minefield. And I go into marriage in one of Squire Throwley's heir in 1220 or so, whenever that book was based. But I had always thought that marriage, you went into church, the priest would,
Oh no, at the door.
and then in previous times, like with the current book I'm writing, 1090s, I've got a marriage in that, and basically they said, "Do you want to?" Yeah, all right. So they're married. That's it.
Yeah.
Nice and straightforward.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I know
Yeah.
I'm going to get some grief for that.
Yeah.
I know there's going to be people saying, "Well, I wouldn't have got married for that."
Have you done Crusaders War yet? Have you written that?
Yep, that was sent to the editor last week, and so I will probably get it back tomorrow with huge amounts of suggestions that it could be improved. I've got an editor who's got a mind like a steel trap. She looks so nice and unassuming, but no, she's still an
And
editor.
she makes sure your books are
She
perfect
does.
when they
She's
come
bloody.
out. So stop
Oh,
moaning.
I'm entitled to moan every now and
Yeah,
again.
quite.
But that's
Yeah, but she's well aware that if you make one
she
mistake,
knows how to
somebody
deal
will
with
notice
me.
it and they will point
Yep.
it out. And if there's a continuity, so she's making sure that you're not.
Yep. No, I've got no problem with. I mean, I remember Ian Mawson once talking about ruddy copy editors because he sent his first book off, and it came back from the copy editor, and there were lines crossed out, there were pages crossed out, there were changes to his text. He said, "How could anyone change my perfect
Yeah.
prose?" And then he read a couple of things, and actually, it's better. Bugger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I
true.
do
I mean,
that.
any book is a
I'm going.
collaborative effort. We have the inspiration
Yeah.
and the spark,
Mm.
but we do need the help of other people.
I always feel guilty though with mine because I'm going through one at the minute, the copy edit for the next one, and she's done. And every time she puts a comment, should this be such and such? And I'm like, ooh. And so I go, oops. The number of oopses in my replies to her comments. And it's like, oh God, I'm so embarrassed that I didn't notice this.
I do too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I tend to do whoops rather than oops. Yeah, when she
Yeah.
spots something that's
Yeah.
blatantly obvious, you think, oh God, no,
Yeah.
not again. But she is this copy is absolutely brilliant. She really is.
So we've got.
The next book I'm writing now. I've got one which is a collaborative book, which I can't talk about, with a friend, and the other one is what Boldwood are calling Templar One, and that's going to be this one moving on from Acca and what happens to Baldwin. Going to be a crime story, as I said, and it's going to be looking much more at Baldwin and Edgar and the different levels within the Knights Templar. Also the initiation into the Knights Templar and all that kind of thing, which I find quite interesting. There's one thing that I still find really problematic, and that is one of my favourite films of the period is Kingdom of Heaven, which I thought was just staggeringly brilliant. The director's cut, the non-director's cut you see on TV isn't as good, but the director's cut really is an excellent, excellent film and gives you the atmosphere and everything else. I mean, and it does go wrong in places. I mean, they've got a hell of a lot of belfries, siege towers, which they wouldn't have had that many, and it has got little details. But the thing that always gets me is it shows Knights Templar being hanged. I don't think that happened. I think if a Knight Templar misbehaved, then they were unfrocked, they were kicked out of the order,
Yeah. Or
and that was the
imprisoned.
worst punishment they could have. I've not seen any evidence anywhere of them actually being executed, so I doubt it. I mean, at the end of the day, they wanted to have a group of deeply religious and pretty violent people to join the order, and if they were kicked out, it was generally not because they'd murdered someone, it was because they'd embezzled money or they'd sold a horse for cash or something along those lines. All of the other allegations seem to be completely invented, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. So if you find anything about Templars being executed, let me know.
Will do. So
Not
it's
after
called
13,
Templar
14.
One. So
Yeah.
The working title. So does that mean it's going to be the start of a new series of Baldwin doing investigations in the Holy Land?
So there's going to be more Vintane, there's going to be more Templar, there's going to be more Holy Wars books. the Holy Wars books will mainly focus on the different wars, oddly enough, as you might have guessed from the title. The Templar books will be specifically crime books, but based on the Templars, so looking at the different elements of the Templars and so on. And Vintaine's going to be getting much more into Sir John Hawkwood's campaigns and that murderous bastard's life.
So you've picked periods with scope for a lot of books, because the Crusades went on for, I mean, I remember there's an 8th and a 9th.
Yeah.
I think there's some after that as well.
but my series isn't going to be Crusades as such. My series is the Holy Land, much more. So basically what I'm trying to do is tie up all of the different series.
Yeah.
So I'm tying up the Crusades Holy Wars series will tie straight into Baldwin at Acre.
Right.
But then the Templar series after that, and then the Knights Templar series, the Templar books, the original ones. And then I also want to tie, well, I have tied Baldwin's son then goes on into the Vintain series.
And you've got 100 years then of the Vintain series.
Yep. I'll be dead by then.
So we get into the mid-15th century with the end of the Vintain series, but so you've got 100 years you've still got to cover.
Oh, don't worry about
between the end of the 100 Years' War and the start of Queen Mary, Mary Tudor.
The first Fernsell estates start to fall apart, and one of the sons becomes a blackjack, and he moves into. There's always a way to do it.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, too clever by half, these authors.
If I was clever, I'd be a multimillionaire.
Thank you very much, Michael, for an absolutely entertaining discussion. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
As always.
It is always a pleasure having you on, and I highly recommend everybody reads Pilgrim War. It's a brilliant novel, very entertaining and enlightening.
Thanks a lot for inviting me on it again.
Well, thank you very much, Michael. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks a lot to both of you. Really good to see you again.
Yeah.
Cheers then.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Michael.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So thank you very much to Michael. Do join us next time when Derek and I will be analysing the reign of King Stephen and deciding whether or not he was a successful king. I've been Sharon Bennett Connolly.
And I'm Derek Birks. If you enjoyed the podcast, don't forget to catch up with us on YouTube or your normal podcast provider. Thanks for listening.